My name is Naomi Carter. I was 34 years old, an emergency department social worker, and the woman standing beneath my porch light that night was my identical twin sister, Noel. One side of her face was badly swollen. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her hands would not stop trembling. Tears ran silently down her cheeks as she stared at me like she was afraid I might close the door. Noel and I had barely spoken in years. But when she finally opened her mouth, the first thing she said was not an apology or an explanation. "Please don't tell Marcus I'm here." Marcus was her husband. Before that night ended, Noel would admit that he had been hurting and controlling her for years. Soon afterward, she and I would secretly exchange places long enough to get her somewhere he could not reach. Marcus would look straight at me and believe I was his wife. What he did next, before realizing he had chosen the wrong twin, would destroy every defense he had spent years building. But standing in that doorway, I did not know any of that yet. All I knew was that my sister looked terrified, and despite spending my career helping frightened people through emergencies, I could not make myself move. For one terrible second, guilt held me in place. Why had Noel never told me? Why had she spent years pushing me away? And why were there messages on my phone, messages supposedly written by her, telling me never to interfere in her marriage again? Before I explain what those messages were hiding, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and like the video. Stories like Noel's matter because control becomes stronger when everyone outside the door assumes nothing is wrong. To understand how my sister ended up on my porch, I need to take you back a few hours before she arrived, when I still believed our estrangement had been her choice. That evening had begun like dozens of others. I finished a demanding shift at the hospital and drove home through nearly empty streets. My shoulders hurt from sitting through crisis meetings, and my mind was still carrying fragments of other people's emergencies. By the time I reached my bungalow, all I wanted was silence. The porch light was already on. I always left it burning when I expected to return after dark. It was an ordinary habit, but it had another meaning I rarely admitted aloud. Some part of me wanted Noel to know she could still find my door. We had once been the kind of twins who could understand each other through a glance. Growing up, teachers confused us, neighbors called us by the wrong names, and even relatives sometimes relied on our matching bracelets to tell us apart. But I had always known which one of us was Noel. She tilted her head when she was trying not to disagree. She rubbed her thumb across her wrist when she felt cornered. Her smile appeared slowly, as if she needed to decide whether she was allowed to enjoy something before letting anyone see it. Marcus never seemed interested in those differences. When he married her, he talked about how alike we looked. He rarely spoke about the things that made her entirely herself. I had noticed that. I simply had not understood what it meant. Inside my house, I dropped my bag beside the kitchen counter and checked my phone. There were no personal messages. That had become normal. Months earlier, I had tried inviting Noel to lunch. The response from her account had been short and cold. She said I judged her marriage, resented Marcus, and needed to stay away. I had answered once, telling her that my door would remain open. She never replied. I reheated dinner, left it untouched, and sat beneath the quiet hum of the kitchen light. I told myself I had respected her boundary. That was the phrase I used whenever the guilt returned. I had respected her boundary. I had not abandoned her. I repeated those thoughts until they almost sounded true. Then my doorbell rang. It was late enough that every instinct I had developed from living alone came alive at once. I opened the security application on my phone before approaching the door. At first, the person on the screen appeared to be me. Same height, same dark hair, same shape of face. Then she lifted her head. Noel. I was at the door before I remembered to check the street. She stood under the porch light with one arm folded tightly across her body. Her other hand hovered near the bell, as if she had considered pressing it again, but lacked the strength. I opened the door. She looked at me, but she did not step forward. Naomi. Her voice barely carried across the threshold. What happened? Her eyes moved past me, searching the room behind my shoulder. Is anyone here? No. Are you sure? Yes. Only then did she cross the threshold. I looked along the street before shutting the door. No unfamiliar car waited at the curb. No headlights slowed outside the house. When I turned the lock, Noel flinched. It was a small reaction, but I had spent years noticing reactions people wished they could hide. I lowered my voice. Is Marcus nearby? I don't know. Do you need an ambulance? No. Did you drive here? She looked down instead of answering. I wanted to ask everything at once. I wanted to know who had hurt her, how long ago it happened, whether she felt dizzy, whether she could breathe normally, and whether someone had followed her. But Noel was already watching me, the way frightened people watched authority figures, waiting for me to decide what would happen to her. So I stopped. You're safe inside, I said. We'll take one thing at a time. The word safe changed something in her expression. Not relief. Grief. I guided her toward the couch without touching her. She sat on its edge, still wearing her coat, still holding herself as if she might need to run again. I brought her a cold pack wrapped in a clean towel and placed it on the table beside her. She stared at it for several seconds before picking it up. Her phone began vibrating inside her coat. The sound made her entire body tense. She pulled it out. Marcus's name filled the screen. She rejected the call. Almost immediately, another one followed. Then another. Does he know you left? She turned the phone face down. He knows I'm not home. That isn't what I asked. Noel pressed the towel against her face and closed her eyes. He always knows where I am. The statement settled between us. I sat in the chair across from her rather than beside her, leaving her space and a clear path to the door. Professional habits had taken over because the sister in me was too angry to think clearly. Did Marcus do this? Noel's eyes opened. For a moment, she looked like she might deny it. Then her shoulders dropped. Yes. The anger I had been containing rose so quickly that my hands went cold. I wanted his address. I wanted the police. I wanted every consequence available to descend on him before he could reach my street. But Noel was studying my face, and I understood that one wrong reaction could make her take back the truth she had just given me. I kept my voice steady. Was this the first time? She looked toward the front door. No. How long has it been happening? Her phone vibrated again. This time, a message appeared before the screen went dark. I saw only enough to recognize the shift in Marcus's approach. His calls had begun with concern. The message blamed her for forcing him to search for her. Noel placed the phone beneath her coat, as if hiding it could make the pressure disappear. Then she looked at me. Years, she whispered. It's been happening for years. The room seemed to tilt. Every cold message I thought she had sent me returned at once. Every canceled visit. Every birthday she missed. Every time Marcus answered her phone and said she was sleeping, busy, unwell, or unwilling to speak to me. I had believed my sister wanted distance. Now she was sitting in my living room, afraid of a man who apparently knew every place she went. I moved from the chair and knelt several feet in front of her. You don't have to go back tonight. Noel's eyes filled again. You don't understand. Then help me understand. He'll come here. The phone vibrated beneath her coat once more. Noel stared toward the illuminated window beside my front door. He always finds me. At that moment, neither of us knew how completely Marcus had been monitoring her, or how soon he would follow that trail directly to my house. I believed her. That was the first decision I made after learning the truth, and it was the only decision that did not frighten her. I'm not sending you back, I said, but I need to know what you want to do next. Noel lowered the cold pack from her face. I don't know. That's allowed. Her phone vibrated beneath her coat again. "Would you let me take you to the hospital?" Her eyes immediately sharpened with fear. "No police." I said hospital. "Nothing else happens unless you choose it." She studied me, searching for the command hidden inside my offer. There wasn't one. Finally, she nodded. The hospital looked different when I entered through the public doors beside my injured sister. I had spent years walking those corridors with an identification badge clipped to my clothes. I knew which elevators were slow, which consultation rooms offered privacy, and which staff members remained calm when families became overwhelmed. That night, none of that knowledge made me feel prepared. I was not Noel's social worker. I was her sister. A clinician documented the swelling and other visible signs of harm without forcing Noel to describe everything at once. When I tried to answer one question for her, Noel glanced at me. I stopped immediately. "She needs to answer," I said. The clinician nodded and returned her attention to Noel. That small correction mattered. Marcus had spent years speaking for my sister. I could not help her recover her voice by becoming another person who used it for her. An advocate arrived after the examination. She introduced herself as Layla Morgan and sat across from Noel without placing a desk or clipboard between them. "You control what happens next," Layla said. "My job is to make sure you understand your options." Noel looked doubtful. "What if none of the options are safe?" "Then we discuss the risks honestly. I won't promise something I can't guarantee." That answer reached Noel in a way reassurance had not. Layla explained that confidential accommodation, legal guidance, and a formal safety plan were available. She did not pressure Noel to make a police report that night. She did not ask why she had stayed. She asked what Marcus controlled. Noel stared at the floor. "Our accounts." Layla waited. "My car, the phone plan, most of the bills." "What about your location?" Noel's thumb moved across her wrist. "He said married people shouldn't need privacy." Her phone vibrated again. Marcus had shifted from calling to messaging. His words moved between concern and accusation so quickly that they almost appeared to come from different people. He claimed he was worried. Then he blamed Noel for humiliating him. Then he insisted that she had misunderstood what happened. Finally, he warned her against involving me. I felt anger rising in my chest, but Layla's expression remained steady. "Has he ever accessed your email or social accounts?" "He knows the passwords." "All of them?" Noel nodded. I took out my phone. "There's something you need to see." I opened the last message I had received from Noel's account, the one telling me to stay away from her marriage. Noel read it twice. "I didn't write that." My stomach tightened. There were others. I showed her the older messages. Each one had appeared after I questioned something Marcus had done. Each one sounded colder than the last. Noel reached into her coat and opened a conversation on her phone. My name appeared above it. The messages supposedly written by me accused her of choosing Marcus over her family. Another said I was exhausted by her problems and wanted nothing more to do with her. "I never sent these," I said. "I thought you hated me. I thought you wanted me gone." For years, we had each been grieving a rejection that the other had never made. Noel covered her mouth. "I believed them." So did I. Marcus had not simply separated her from me by demanding that she stay away. He had made both of us believe the separation was voluntary. That realization hurt differently from anger. Anger had direction. This was grief for birthdays, holidays, and ordinary afternoons stolen so quietly that neither of us had recognized the theft. Noel's phone lit up again. This time, Marcus's message contained no apology. He knew she was at the hospital. Noel pushed the phone across the table toward Layla. "I told you," she whispered. "He always knows." Layla did not touch the device. "Do you know which accounts still share your location?" "No." Does he have access to the vehicle system? Yes. Shared cloud account. Noel nodded. Each answer narrowed the uncertainty. Marcus was not finding her through intuition or coincidence. He had built a network around her life and taught her to mistake it for concern. My phone rang. Marcus Reed appeared on the screen. Noel stopped breathing for a moment. You don't have to answer, Layla said. I looked at Noel. What do you want? Her gaze remained fixed on the phone. I want to hear what he tells you. I answered without putting the call on speaker. Naomi, Marcus's voice was calm. I think Noel may have come to you. I said nothing. She's been under a lot of pressure. She left after an argument and may not be thinking clearly. I looked at my sister. Her eyes closed. What happened to her face? I asked. The silence on his end lasted barely a second. She fell. Noel's eyes opened. I need to speak with my wife. She's safe. His voice hardened, then softened again. You don't understand our marriage. You're right, I didn't. Put her on the phone. No. Another brief silence. You have always resented me. This isn't about me. It became about you the moment you interfered. I ended the call. My hand was trembling. Noel noticed. He does that, she said. He makes you feel unreasonable before you've said anything. The phone rang again. I declined it. Layla moved closer to the table. Now we need to decide where you want to go. Noel looked toward me. I answered too quickly. She's coming home with me. Noel's entire posture changed. Her shoulders tightened. Her gaze dropped. The small signs of submission returned as if someone had flipped a switch. Layla looked at me. Naomi, let Noel answer. The correction embarrassed me, but it was necessary. I had heard danger and responded by building a plan around my sister. Marcus had spent years doing the same thing while calling it protection. I leaned back. I'm sorry. Noel looked up. I want you safe, I continued, but I don't get to define that for you. Layla laid out the available choices again. Returning to my house would offer familiarity, but Marcus already knew its location. Confidential accommodation would be less comfortable, but harder for him to reach. Formal reporting could create legal protection, but it would also require Noel to repeat parts of her experience. No option was painless. That was the reality Marcus had created. Noel listened without interrupting. Then she picked up her phone and looked at the messages again. I don't want to go back to him. It was not a complete plan, but it was a decision, and it belonged to her. Morning light had begun appearing beyond the hospital windows when Noel opened the banking application on her phone. The account that received her teaching salary appeared under both names, but Marcus controlled nearly every practical function. He had moved money between accounts, restricted access to cards, and required explanations for ordinary purchases. Noel had been earning her own income while asking permission to use it. He said he was better with money, she explained. Layla asked whether Noel had access to an independent account. No. Emergency cash. Noel shook her head. I started to speak, but she looked at me. I know you can give me money, she said. I need to learn what I can do for myself. You're right. The words were difficult, not because I disagreed, but because stepping back felt too much like the distance that had separated us. Noel opened a folder containing records she had preserved over time. There were messages in which Marcus apologized without nomming what he had done. Others blamed her for provoking him. There were photographs, earlier medical documents, and notes recording dates when fear had been stronger than her willingness to report. I kept thinking I might need them, she said. Why didn't you use them? I asked. Her expression closed. I immediately regretted the question. Layla intervened gently. Keeping them was using them. You preserved what you could until you were ready. Noel looked at the folder. I thought maybe one day I'd need proof for myself. That sentence explained more than any document. Marcus had not only convinced other people that Noel was unreliable, he had trained her to doubt her own memory. Layla began coordinating confidential support. Detective Rosa Alvarez, an investigator assigned to family violence cases, reviewed the immediate report without promising an easy outcome. "The current documentation matters," Alvarez said. "The messages may matter, the account records may matter, but each piece has to be verified." Noel looked disappointed. "You don't believe me." "I believe you deserve an investigation that can survive being challenged." Noel considered that distinction. Alvarez did not offer instant justice. She offered process, which was slower but more credible. Marcus continued applying pressure. Calls appeared from his number, then from the bank where he worked. Notifications showed attempted account changes. Every new contact repeated the same pattern: concern followed by blame, followed by a demand. He wanted Noel returned before she could make a decision without him. Layla arranged confidential accommodation and secure transportation. The safest path was for Noel to leave without Marcus learning where she had gone. The difficulty was that the systems he monitored were still pointing toward her. That was when Noel looked at me for a long moment. We had the same face, the same height, the same dark hair. To people who knew us, there were dozens of differences. To Marcus, apparently there were none. "He'll watch where he thinks I am," Noel said. I understood before she finished. "No." Her eyebrows rose. The refusal had come from her, not me. "I'm not letting you confront him," she said. "That isn't what I'm suggesting. You're thinking about staying visible while I leave." I glanced at Layla. The advocate's expression was serious. "The objective cannot be confrontation," she said. "No one provokes him. No one approaches him. Any visual decoy must be brief and contained within the existing safety arrangement." The plan was not revenge, and it was not something anyone should attempt without professional protection. Its only purpose was to separate Noel from the location Marcus believed he controlled. Noel made the final decision. For a short period, I would wear her dark coat and remain associated with the monitored location. She would leave under Layla's protection. Noel's monitored accounts would remain connected to me. Safe communication with her would be maintained separately by the advocate. We did not exchange identities completely. We exchanged only what Marcus expected to see. Before Noel left, she looked down at our matching bracelets. From the outside, they appeared identical. Inside, each carried a different engraving. She touched mine. "Don't take it off." "I wasn't planning to." "If he really looks at you, he'll know." The statement carried a question neither of us answered. Had Marcus ever truly looked at her? I put on Noel's coat. She adjusted the collar, then stepped back. It was like looking into a mirror that remembered a different life. Noel wore my outer layer as she prepared to leave with Layla. Her face remained partly concealed, but the resemblance was never meant to withstand close attention. It only needed to redirect Marcus's focus long enough for Noel to reach safety. At the last moment, she caught my hand. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." Her expression tightened. I corrected myself. "I want to do this, but if you tell me to stop, I stop." Noel looked toward Layla and then back at me. "Continue." That single word marked the difference between helping her and controlling her. Noel departed under the professional safety plan. I returned to my house, carrying the identity Marcus expected to follow. My porch light was still on when I arrived home. For the first time, it did not feel comforting. It felt exposed. I entered through the front door and immediately checked the security system. Nothing had changed since I left. The forced entry sensors were active. The cameras were recording. Layla confirmed that Noel had reached confidential safety. Relief moved through me, but it did not settle. The plan should have ended there. I was supposed to remain inside, avoid contact, and alert the safety team if Marcus appeared. Noel was gone. The monitored location had been separated from her. There was no reason for Marcus to approach me unless control mattered more to him than reconciliation. Less than an hour later, headlights slowed outside my house. A dark vehicle stopped at the curb. Marcus stepped out. He wore the same pressed coat I had seen at formal family gatherings. His posture was controlled, his movements measured. Anyone watching from a neighboring window might have assumed he was a concerned husband collecting his wife. The security application displayed him from several angles. He walked directly to my porch. He did not look around as if uncertain. He knew where he believed Noel was. The doorbell rang. I remained several feet from the entrance. "Noel." His voice came through the door. I did not answer. He rang again. "I know you're inside." I had been told not to engage unless necessary. I activated the established alert and waited. Marcus moved toward the window beside the door. From where he stood, he could see the outline of a woman wearing his wife's coat. His shoulders relaxed. "Noel, open the door. Leave the property." My voice and Noel's had always sounded alike. Over a closed door, the difference disappeared. Marcus placed one hand against the glass. "I came to take you home. I'm not going anywhere with you." His expression changed. It was not dramatic. The public concern simply left his face. "You've caused enough trouble. Leave. Your sister filled your head with this nonsense." I kept my distance. "You need to go. You don't get to disappear and embarrass me." The words confirmed what Noel had described. He was not asking whether she felt safe. He was angry that she had made a decision without him. He tried the handle. The door remained locked. For several seconds, he stood still. I thought he might finally recognize the danger of what he was doing. Instead, he struck the door hard enough to shake the frame. "Marcus, stop." He hit it again. The sound echoed through the house. Then the frame gave way. Marcus crossed my threshold, believing he had found his wife. And with that single decision, he created the evidence he had spent years avoiding. He came inside calling Noel's name. I stepped back. "This is not your house. You're coming with me." "No." He crossed the room quickly and caught my arm. The contact was brief but forceful. I did not fight him. I continued backing toward the open area covered by the security system. "You know what happens when you force me to come looking for you," he said. The words were clear. So was his face. He believed he was speaking to Noel. "I told you to leave. After everything I've provided, you think you can walk away because Naomi put ideas in your head. This is your last chance." "No, it was yours." He tightened his grip and started pulling me toward the damaged doorway. "You are going home. You will tell everyone you overreacted, and you will fix this before it reaches my bank." I looked directly at him. "I'm not Noel." Marcus stopped. For the first time since entering the house, he studied my face. His gaze moved to my wrist. The matching bracelet was there, but the engraving belonged to me. His hand released my arm. "Naomi." It was not concern that appeared on his face. It was calculation. He looked toward the security camera. Then he moved toward it. He attempted to interfere with the recording system, but the evidence had already been transmitted beyond his reach. Sirens became audible outside. Marcus stepped away from the camera and straightened his coat. By the time the first officers entered, his public expression had returned. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. "I thought my wife was in danger." The damaged entrance stood behind him. My arm still ached where he had held it. The security system had preserved his threats. One officer separated us, while another secured the house. Marcus tried to explain that Noel was emotionally unstable and that I had deceived him. He did not understand that every explanation deepened the pattern. He admitted he had tracked her. He admitted he believed she was inside. He admitted he entered to take her home against her refusal. The calm voice that had protected him socially could not undo the recorded conduct. Marcus was arrested. When Detective Alvarez arrived, she reviewed the visible damage, confirmed that the recording had been preserved, and asked me to describe what happened from the beginning. I told her about the doorbell, the refusal, the forced entry, the threat connecting this confrontation to earlier behavior. The moment he realized I was not Noel, Alvarez examined the bracelet without touching it. He didn't notice the difference. No. He was close enough. Yes. That detail did not establish a crime by itself, but it established something emotionally important. Marcus knew Noel's face. He knew the clothes he had purchased for her. He knew the systems attached to her phone and car. But he had never learned the small difference between the bracelet she wore and the one belonging to her twin. To him, recognizing Noel had never required knowing her. It only required recognizing something he believed he owned. Layla told Noel what happened after Marcus had been removed. My sister appeared on a secure video call. She stared at my face, then at the damaged doorway behind me. Are you hurt? I'm all right. You're not. My arm hurts. I've been checked. I'm safe. She closed her eyes. He thought you were me. Yes. And he still did it. Yes. For years, Marcus had taught Noel that his behavior was caused by her mistakes, her tone, her timing, her failure to keep him calm. Now he had directed the same behavior toward someone else while believing that person was her. The excuse collapsed. Noel opened her eyes. It was never me. No. The sentence did not free her immediately. Years of fear do not disappear because of one realization. But it created the first opening through which freedom could enter. Alvarez reviewed the recording with Noel's permission. The investigators did not treat it as proof of every earlier incident. They treated it as a new, independently preserved event capable of supporting the broader pattern. Marcus's attempt to interfere with the camera added another layer. His recorded threats echoed language found in older messages. His claim that he had come because Noel was in danger conflicted with his refusal to leave when ordered. His actions had not merely revealed his temper. They had exposed his system. For the first time, Marcus could not control who owned the information. The arrest ended the immediate confrontation. It did not end the pressure. Marcus denied abusing Noel. Through formal channels, he claimed the identity exchange had confused and provoked him. He argued that he had entered my house because he feared his wife was being manipulated. The recording showed that he had been told to leave. The damaged threshold showed what he did next. Still, Noel heard enough of his defense to begin doubting herself again. What if everyone thinks we trapped him? She asked Layla. You did not make him cross that threshold. But we exchanged places. To get you away from his monitoring. The plan ended when you reached safety. His decision came afterward. Noel looked at me. I wanted to tell her the case was too strong to abandon. I wanted to say she owed it to every future version of herself to continue. The words were already forming when I recognized the danger in them. Marcus had spent years telling Noel what she owed. I could not build her freedom from another obligation. What do you want? I asked. I want it to stop. Layla nodded. That can mean different things. Do you want to stop participating, or do you want his access to your life to stop? Noel did not answer immediately. Marcus's access had already begun shrinking. Protective restrictions prevented direct contact. Account activity connected to his control was being preserved. His employer placed him away from his position while the allegations and records were reviewed. Yet every legal notification reminded Noel that he still existed. She considered withdrawing her account of the earlier abuse, not because it was untrue, but because silence had protected her from immediate escalation for years. Naomi, the social worker, understood that. Naomi, the sister, wanted to shake the fear out of her. One afternoon, Noel told me she might return to our original statement and describe the porch incident as a misunderstanding. I stood. "No, you can't do that." She recoiled. The room became quiet. I heard Marcus in my own certainty. Not his cruelty, not his entitlement, but the assumption that my fear gave me authority over her choice. I sat down again. "I'm sorry. You think I'm making the wrong decision. I think you're frightened. I am frightened. I know. But it still has to be my decision." Yes. It was one of the hardest answers I had ever given. I left the room and allowed Noel to speak privately with Layla. When she emerged later, she had not become fearless. Her hands still trembled. She still checked the hallway before stepping into it. But she carried a folder containing the evidence she had saved. "I want to meet Detective Alvarez again," she said. This time, I did not tell her what should happen after that. "I'll take you if you want me to." "I do." The evidence developed slowly. Account records showed how Marcus moved Noel's salary and restricted her access to shared money. Communication records supported the conclusion that messages had been sent through devices connected to accounts Marcus controlled. Location records demonstrated that he monitored her movements and followed the information to my home. Earlier medical documentation aligned with dates in the notes Noel had preserved. His apologies, threats, and accusations repeated the same phrases heard on my security recording. No single document told the entire story. Together, they made denial increasingly difficult. Detective Alvarez remained careful. "This does not mean every question disappears," she told Noel. "It means the questions now have evidence attached to them." Marcus continued trying to shift responsibility. Every effort followed the pattern Noel had described: minimization, blame, concern for his reputation, and pressure for her to restore the public image of their marriage. But he could no longer communicate privately and later deny the contact. The information belonged to more people now. Investigators, attorneys, the court. Most importantly, it belonged to Noel. She no longer had to carry the entire truth alone. The formal separation documents were placed before her weeks later. I sat beside her, but kept my hands in my lap. Noel read every page. She asked questions when something was unclear. She corrected one detail instead of assuming an authority figure must know better. Then she signed her name. Not mine. Not Marcus's. Her own. That was the emotional victory Marcus had never anticipated. The secret exchange had helped her reach safety. The recorded confrontation had exposed him. But Noel's signature was what made her separation permanent. The legal proceedings continued for months. Marcus's attorneys challenged the context of the recording, but they could not remove his words, the forced entry, or the attempt to interfere with the system preserving them. They could not explain away the monitoring records. They could not turn Noel's salary into his private property. They could not prove that the messages separating the twins reflected either sister's wishes. Faced with the authenticated recording and the wider evidence pattern, Marcus accepted a felony plea rather than proceed to trial. He received a custodial sentence followed by supervised restrictions. Long-term protective conditions prevented him from privately approaching either of us. He lost his banking position. Restitution addressed part of the financial harm, while the divorce restored Noel's lawful share of the marital assets and ended Marcus's control over her income. None of those consequences returned the stolen years. Justice could not give us back the birthdays we missed or erase the fear Marcus had trained into Noel's daily life. It could establish that his choices had consequences. It could create distance he was no longer permitted to cross. Noel remained an art teacher. Returning to the classroom frightened her at first because she believed everyone could see what had happened. Most people saw the same patient, observant teacher they had always known. Survival had not removed that identity. Marcus had only convinced her that he owned it. Noel did not move into my house. That decision surprised me until I understood its importance. Living with me might have been easier financially and emotionally, but she did not want freedom to become a new dependency. She found a modest home of her own. The first time I visited, I asked before opening cabinets, moving boxes, or deciding where anything should go. Noel noticed. "You're being unusually careful," she said. "I'm practicing." She smiled. It was the slow smile I remembered from childhood, but it no longer asked permission before appearing. Our relationship did not return to what it had been. It became something healthier. We stopped treating closeness as constant access. Noel did not have to answer every message to prove she loved me. I did not interpret silence as abandonment. When she wanted advice, she asked. When she wanted company, she invited me. When she wanted space, I respected it. The matching bracelets remained with us. Noel added a small charm to hers, something chosen only because she liked it. The addition made the bracelets easier to distinguish from a distance. It also made them more honest. We were connected. We were not interchangeable. One evening, Noel invited me to see the last of the boxes unpacked. Dusk had settled by the time I reached her street. She was standing outside her new home with one hand near the porch switch. For a moment, the image carried me back to the night she stood beneath my light, frightened to cross the threshold. This time, she was standing on her own porch. She controlled the lock. She controlled the accounts. She controlled who entered. Noel switched on the light. Warm color spread across the steps and illuminated the bracelet on her wrist, including the new charm she had selected for herself. Then she looked at me. "Would you like to come in?" I waited for the invitation to be complete. "Yes." Noel opened the door because she wanted me there. And together, we crossed a threshold that finally belonged entirely to her.